Okay, just doing a quick one take. I came out at lunch and stripped the cam so I could give some information to Lunati. I've used both Howard's and Lunati to good effect over the years, and honestly at this point Lunati's the only person responding to us, so I wouldn't mind running a Voodoo cam anyway. I've done a couple different Voodoos in 383s in the past, including the one in Mark's car, which was a pretty good size flat tappet, not a roller, but that was a decent cam, sounded great, and we were able to get it to work with fuel injection, so that matters. This cam that just came out, I mean, these lobes look like they're boxes. Oh, this is absolutely crazy. They look like little squared off boxes. So anyway, I needed to know what the base circle of the cam was to let them know, because obviously with a stroker motor you want to make sure we're going to clear the rod bolts is usually what you're going to hit. This was in the ballpark of 1.1 inches. They were talking about using a base circle of 1.05, so perfect, a little bit smaller. We knew we were changing push rods no matter what. The timing chain was installed 180 out, which is fine, just weird. Didn't expect that, but you know, it works the same either way. You know, they did have a thrust or Torrington bearing on here, and then the weirdest thrust button I've come across yet. I can't prove that that was the way it was meant to be installed, but I can't prove it wasn't either. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to reuse this. Actually, I know I'm not going to reuse it because I had to score it up to get the bolts out. I'm going to go probably, there's one from Howard's I really like. It's not even that expensive, but it's a roller end instead of this. This one's like a two-piece, and it's just rides in this. And I think I'd rather have the bearings ride on it. So we will go to what I've been using that has worked well in the past for me. I don't know. That was probably part of the kit. So, but boy, it was difficult to get apart. Cam slid out fine. No problem there. You know, bearings look fine. Probably reuse this. It, I'm guessing, doesn't have a lot of miles on it, and there's hardly any wear. So anyway, all that came out, and you know, keep track of where everything came from. You always want to know if you put anything back, you want it where it was. But yeah, so there's that. Let's see, what else do I know? Oh yeah, and front cover, absolutely just these people went nuts with the RTV. Doesn't make sense. That is a reusable gasket that I can't reuse because they went crazy. You know, this was a paper gasket, so at least, you know, it didn't kill it. But I mean, yeah, they went nuts with the RTV. I'm definitely not even going to bother trying to clean up that cover. It's just not going to be worth my time. They're not that expensive, and I'm just going to replace that. I'm not going to spend 2 hours cleaning that. Other than that, like I said, heads are definitely coming off, and we will go from there. But if you look down the bore, well, you probably can't see, but you know, right here you can look in and you can see just how close the reciprocating assembly comes to the cam tunnel, which is why in real high lift aftermarket applications, sometimes a raised cam journal location is used. So, all right, that is that footage for now. I don't know what video this will wind up in. I don't know if it'll be a standalone or if I'll tack it onto another one. All right, ShopDog and I are heading out, and we're going to see about pulling that head and see what things look like. Now, he's going to run around. I know it's black. Nothing I can do about that. It's Minnesota, and it's winter. And you know, it's after 6 o'clock, so you know it's dark as all get out. That doesn't need to be that bright. Alright, so I think we're going to come on in and get started. So I will kick this back on in a little bit when we're set up to do the work. Alright, ShopDog is super unhappy right now, but I'm sure that's just getting all kinds of itchy and he doesn't like it. Just like when you're putting clamp surfaces together, you've got to even out the clamp load. Taking them off, you really want to do the same thing, especially since this is iron, which is pretty stable. This is aluminum, which is a lot less stable. So unlike when we're installing it where we basically rotate our way out, we're going to crack and work our way back into the middle. So all I'm going to do is go through, crack them all loose, get everybody down, and then we can go ahead and pull them all out. And then I'll have Jeff hold this when we do pick the head off, because I'm dying to see what that looks like. Bolts have all been broken, and then we just use the zippy gun to pull them up. I'm going to go grab a magnet, and we'll pull them out. On the upside, they are ARPs, so we'll be able to reuse them, so that saves us a little bit of money. But one thing to keep track of is note how the washer, well, two things to note on these. The washer has a directionality because under the head here there's a radius that you can see. So the washer has a direction. That chamfer goes towards the bolt head. Also note on small block Chevy, see how that one's a little shorter? All the rest of these head bolts will be the same length. That one will also be shorter, and these will be a lot shorter. See, and these are just little bitty guys. No specific location other than by length, so there's no reason to keep track of where they came from. They can go back after they've been cleaned, very thoroughly cleaned, all the sealer taken off of them, and all the bolt holes chased. That I've kept for years that I like to use for these, because it's not going to destroy anything. The wood is much softer. So usually you can get it either in a water jacket, you can get it in an intake, or even into an exhaust. Just going to do it, and we're going to kind of break. So see, we broke that free. So this should now lift out, no problem. Okay, we haven't looked at anything yet. Alright, so first thing I noticed right away, exhaust valves, not on number 8, but on the other ones, they're toasty, which we already suspected. These are going to need cleaned up. So, exhaust valves are toasty, which, with all the broken headers and everything on this, honestly is not a surprise. Something in the coolant, didn't expect that. Let's see if we can get the head gasket off. Because if you can do it carefully, you can tell a lot. You're looking for any tracking between them. We didn't have a massive compression leak, so I mean, I'm not looking for a blown head gasket, or wasn't planning on there being one. And this looked like it actually was doing its job just fine. So we're gonna keep it with this head. Can't reuse it, but I need to know what thickness it was when we go back in. Now, the first thing we're going to notice is there's an awful lot of freaking carbon. I mean a lot of carbon. So, let me grab a 5/8 here. Oh, I'm sorry. Not a 5/8. Let me grab a tool I haven't shown you guys yet, I don't think. This is a crankshaft tool. See the keyway that the bouncer would ride? You just pop that on there. I'm not going to tighten it too much. Makes it real nice for spinning them over. I got them for a couple different crank sizes. So the first thing I want to do is bring number 8 up and take a good look at the piston crown. For starters, notice how clean it is around the edges compared to the other ones. But then see all this carbon buildup? Yeah, there's carbon in all of them, but this one's a lot worse. We're not cleaning anything yet. Okay, and this is a 40 over engine, and we will actually look up and make sure that these are forged and not hypers. Although honestly, with the way this engine's run, there's no way they're hypers. Before it all goes back together, I will do some videos showing, checking and calculating the deck height and everything, because no matter what somebody else did, I need to know what I've got going back together. So, you know, I want to know what our static compression is, and everything there. The other thing we want to know now is the cylinder that's down is number 2. So I'm going to wipe the wall here, and the first thing I want to do is come up, and I'm feeling for a ridge, which I'm not expecting in such a low mile engine. See, there's a little bit of, it's not a ridge, it's just material at the top higher than the ring land, or the ring pack. But there's no real out around. The next thing I'm going to want to look at is I'm looking at crosshatch going down. I should have brought a light. I'll be right back if you want to kind of see if you can focus on that. This is why we're pulling this apart, because we're worried. Okay, so see the crosshatch here. That's what the oil film rides on that actually seals that. And I can see 2 looks good, 4 looks good, 6 has crosshatch. The top of 8, however, does not have crosshatch. Okay, don't worry about any oil buildup. Let me wipe that out. That was just because I stopped the ring. No, I'm not cleaning the top of the piston yet, just the cylinder wall. But we've got scratching here. It is still round, you know, well, I mean, without measuring it. So, yeah, it's not perfect, but I think that'll clean up. I think this whole hone is pretty smooth, but you know, it depends on the rings they used, and I've got to find out what rings they are, because I have a feeling we're replacing them. There's no reason at this point why we wouldn't. Here's also why you have to put sealant on your head bolts. You'll notice these holes just go straight into the water jacket. I mean, this is the water jacket down here, and we're kind of peeking in there looking for anything. The other thing we're definitely looking for is you're always looking for any obvious signs of cracking, super clean spots, anything that looks unusual. So at this point, I think we're going to get the other head pulled real quick, and we'll get the camera back on after that. The plot thickens. You'll note that is not the same head gasket. So here's the driver's, you know, the odd bank. You notice all of those exhaust valves are hot. Carbon buildup. Honestly, with as rich and goofy as this thing did at idle, what do? You know, I mean, I think that's the reality. Number 8 exhaust valve is not the same color as everybody else. But since that plug fouled out all the time, how often was number 8 even working? Looking at the piston crowns, these are a lot filthier. We'll get this set back up even. We'll kind of do a couple wipes. But as soon as we saw it, we wanted to show, yeah, one of these heads has been off without the other one coming off. So the plot thickens. All right, so we've got this thing sitting up even now. So you can see here, we're going to take number 1 all the way down, and we're going to do the same thing we were doing before. Just kind of looking at the crosshatch, seeing what feels. You know, now remember, number 1 was the cylinder that always had the broken header tube. So quite honestly, I thought that this valve was going to be completely shot. All of them are pretty rough, though. I'm not sure we're going to... I think we're going to spend a little money and have those gone through. I'm not seeing a choice that I like there. So, let's see... Hopefully you guys can see that. And the crosshatch is here. It's a real shallow angle crosshatch, but I'm sure it's something to do with the rings. Now, there's a scratch here. I can't feel it, but there's definitely some scratching. There's scratching here as well. So some pistons have been scuffing. You know, and obviously, you know, the world isn't perfect. But it's definitely the kind of thing we don't want to see. especially on an engine that's already 40 over. Yeah, the big thing is, can you feel anything? No, everything feels fine. And a little bit of paper towel there. And let's take a look at 7. Historically, a terrible cylinder in a small block, because remember, 5 fires right before 7. So there's always a little more heat over here, and there's generally not the best airflow from your intake. So, yeah, oh, yeah, pistons are filthy, but I'm not seeing a bunch of carbon, not like over here. You'll note, number 2 has a little carbon buildup. 8 has physical, I can feel it, crunchy carbon built up. Look at that, that's the carbon coming flaking off. So we're definitely getting oil in that cylinder. So I think we're just going to skip right to the punch, flip her over and pop that piston out and take a look at the rings. I don't think the rings were working correctly. Pop the pump off real quick, threw her in the pan. And the first thing I wanted to check is make sure somebody had marked them, and somebody did. They didn't use stamps, I think they used a little engraver. That doesn't matter, I can read it. So we're going to go ahead and get this ready to pop out. I did pull out, I don't use the rubber hose method. I've got some nice tools for that. I'll show them to you in a little bit. Okay, we just pop that one out. And let's see. I tried real hard not to shift the rings at all. I haven't had a chance to look yet. Okay, I haven't seen any parting line yet. Okay, on the oil control ring, here's our first parting line here. And boy, they're all really close. So those two are pretty lined up. Where is the... And here is the other part here. So these two are 180 off of each other, give or take a little, which is good enough. These two being in line is not the best, but I don't know how well it shows up. But the wear on this ring is not even. Let's see. Okay, so looking at this discoloration here on this ring, you can see it's worn at the top edge here, but still new on the bottom of it. So let me turn it. You can really see it right there. See that weird shape? I got a feeling that ring is upside down and it didn't wear right. See how the first ring, the compression ring or the fire ring, see how that one is worn nice and square? This one is not. So that's quite interesting. Yeah, that black coating they have on there really is a witness. So we do actually have an oil control issue. These guys being lined up isn't ideal either, especially if, you know, for some reason this oil ring isn't working too well. Let's see how she feels now that I don't feel bad touching it. Yeah, she's still got some tension on her. Should have been scraping. Alright, I'm going to go turn the motor so we can look at that bore real quick. Alright, I'll leave it on super close here. It'll come from behind me with the light. Yeah, the crosshatch looks the same as the others. You know, so hopefully that's the correct pattern for the rings that they had used. Notice it was Speed Pro pistons, so it'll be easy to look them up. The same basic real light scarring that the others have. I will have to check and make sure the bore is correct, but I have no reason to believe it wouldn't be. Crap, it might just be a ring that didn't seat. This whole problem could have just been a ring that wasn't good. So, I gotta consider that for a little while. I haven't looked at this, but we popped the number 7 just to see if we get the same set. So first, there is the clocking of the fire ring. There's the clocking of the second ring. Notice how far apart they are. And the rails for the oil ring are also split. So what I want to know is, did we get that same weird wear on the second ring? Look at that. This one also wore that way. There's definitely, although this one seems to have done it the whole way around the ring and not just at the ends. So let me give it a quick wipe. Yeah, so you can see that one at least did it the whole way around the ring. So we might have a combination of two things. One, the break in the ring, you know, the gaps for the end gaps were lined up pretty close. And two, I don't think the ring's ever broke in completely. So we may get lucky and just solve all this by rebuilding the motor instead of having to send it out for machine work and new pistons and all the other things that we were worried about. Although honestly, while they're out, I'm going to try really hard to convince him that it's a good idea to have these tanked and cleaned. So, okay, well, let's get that back down on the board. Well, it's not all the best news, but it could be worse. So, okay, play with the focus here. I know ShopDog's upset too. For starters, our off gasket, I could see right on it, it was printed 1003. I'm like, crap, I stocked those. So I got a pair of those. They're 41 mil, pretty standard. So we weren't playing quench games. Got some other issues. I haven't figured out exactly which trick flow head these are. They're kind of older and the part numbers seem to have changed. So we're going to have to kind of look into that. I'll try to email them and see if I can find out. But those look like a pretty small chamber. So they're probably 62, 64 cc chambers, which is all fine and dandy till you come over here and you say, huh, these don't look forged. Let me get a part number off them. And you grab a part number and you go look them up, and these are Speed Pro Hypers. Would not have been my first choice for shooting for a 500 horsepower 383, even on a budget, you know, wouldn't have been my first choice. So it's not my engine. I will do what I can to make something I think will work. I think we still got to clean up the heads. Obviously everything's going to come out. I already have head gaskets, so I won't buy those, but I'll get a rest of a gasket kit for this thing. Figure out what bearings we need, get those ordered. I think we're reusing the chain. I think I'm going to change the timing cover. We're definitely changing the oil pan. Once I looked at how that came through and how sharp that crease was, if I hammer it straight, it's going to always be a weak spot. And the oil pan should never be a weak spot in your engine. So, got to work with that. Over the next couple days, we'll get the rest of the pistons out so we can start cleaning. Block's going to have to be cleaned. All the threads going to have to be cleaned out. I mean, you can see all the sealant and crap. Everything's going to have to be cleaned and cleaned and cleaned. Easier in the summer because you can use a pressure washer outside, but doesn't have to. So we'll clean everything up. It's a chance to change rear main seal. We had to change the front seal anyway. It was no good. I think we're pretty much in agreement on where our excess oil is coming from. We looked pretty closely at these pistons, and one thing you note on number 7, which is the other one, as you go around that second ring after we cleaned it off real good, it was silver the whole way around and just had a black edge at the top. This one has areas where it stays black. Also, these two being so close in line, definitely allowing oil to get past. And it doesn't take much heat to change that oil scraping. So I just don't feel that this piston ever broke in correctly. Particularly when talking with Bartley and finding out it's always fouled number 8. You know, it's not every Tuesday, but every time the engine's running bad, number 8 is fouled, which good information to have. And you can see, even after just 2 months of driving, you know, it's not completely fouled out, but another 2 months of driving and this cylinder wouldn't have fired at all. I also think that that's probably why that intake valve or exhaust valve isn't as cooked as the others. They're all pretty white and they've got a pretty heavy deposit on them. So yeah, but number 8, that one actually isn't too bad, but then look how black the intake valve is. So I don't know, we got a lot of carbon buildup. The engine is just, it's filthy. The bearings on here looked fine. The journal doesn't look too bad. I don't see any big scratches or anything. I can't feel anything with my fingernail. I think the engine is going to probably be fine as far as the rotating assembly. I think we just had an assembly issue. I honestly, at this point, think that we got unlucky on some rings. And, you know, I'm definitely open to checking anybody else's opinions here. But that's kind of where I'm going to have it right now. Doesn't really matter at this point anyway. It's all coming apart. We'll bottle brush hone, you know, because we don't want to remove any material at all. And new rings, you know, change all the bearings, all new gaskets, clean everything as good as we can. Paint would be nice. Yeah, and so this wasn't even why the car was here. I'm supposed to be wiring this car and doing other things. But we need to get anything that we need in process going now, because the engine really needs to be back in probably middle of February. So I'd like to get that moving now, because I'd really like this to drive away April. That'd be great, you know, but it is Minnesota, so we will see. We will see what the weather looks like. So this has been a ShopDog approved video. And I think we're going to wrap it up for tonight.